back. I'm a spoken word artist. I have been writing and performing my own pieces since the age of 12. I will say I didn't start out wanting to be a poet. I didn't even start out knowing what I wanted to write about. All I knew is that I had messages and stories that I wanted to tell and wanted to give out into the world and wanted people to hear. And I hope that with this workshop today that we can really find our focus and our intention in our art, whether that's with rap, whether that's with songwriting, whether that's with poetry. They all have the same base, and that same base is to tell your truth through storytelling, which I think is super powerful and super amazing and something so important and imperative in our world today. I will say that how I got into poetry was so wonderful. I met an amazing artist, Miss Britta B. Yeah, you know me, she is amazing. And I really met other artists that really inspired me and encouraged me to get into different types of writing and different types of poetry, which we are going to learn today. And that will help you to create your own style and to find out what works for you. Because even though we can put people on this pedestal and their art on this pedestal, we don't need to emulate and copy all the time. We can make our own style, we can make our own rhythm, we can make our own flow, we can make our own way, which I think is gonna be something that we're gonna discover today, which is gonna be so amazing. But I would also, off the serious side, is with COVID and quarantine, we've been in our house a lot. So we've had feelings of frustration, we've had feelings of anger, we've had feelings of annoyance with the family, all in the house at one time. I could not believe. But we've also had a feeling of serenity and peace to enjoy a moment with ourselves and our spirituality. And we've also been subjected to the binge watching for sure, with Netflix and Crave and Amazon Prime. I'll definitely say that I've had a lot of shows and movies on my list, and one that's been super up top tier was The Shy by Lena Waithe. She talks about misogynoir, racism, colorism, politics, and how that affects the Black community. Not only in Chicago and in America, but we see our societal and systemic issues in Canada reflected in it as well, which I think is super dope and something that everyone should go check out. If you have some recommendations and some comments, drop it down in the comment section below. Let us know what you're watching, what you're into, and hopefully we can all inspire each other. All right, I'm gonna send it off to the amazing Desiree McKenzie. See you soon.
Thank you so much, Shahada, for that intro. My name is Desiree McKenzie. I'm your other facilitator for today. I'm so excited to be working with Heartwork and helping you guys hopefully write some poetry today. Either way, no matter what comes of this, I hope you guys come out feeling inspired and you get some ways to maybe just get creative and even other ways that you want to as well. So like I said, I'm Desiree McKenzie. I'm a spoken word artist. I've been performing for about 5 years on and off, but over the last couple of years, I began to take it on more seriously and professionally. So I perform, I teach, and I get to meet amazing people like yourselves. Hopefully I'll get to meet some of you in real life when things are safe to do so again. So in terms of how I got into spoken word, that starts in the 6th grade when a boy didn't like me back. Very sad. Kind of writing in my diary kind of turned into this rhythmic thing that we'll kind of talk about that later, but it just kind of became a way for me to express myself and express that kind of feeling, and that always followed me even into high school, which is crazy. And then when I went to college for something totally unrelated. I went for advertising, and I still wanted a way to perform. I still wanted a way to be creative and express myself and my feelings. And spoken word just kept on following me, which is crazy. So, but also really cool because I'm so glad to be able to do this and be able to create in this way. And so I do a lot of poetry slams and stuff like that now. And I do workshops just like this. And then in terms of what Shahada was talking about, in terms of a favorite show, drop it in the comments. I'll drop the hashtag here as well. But recently I've been really, really into Canada's Drag Race. Such an incredible show, such an incredible platform, I think. And the art of drag is amazing. I'm totally Queen Priyanka, an Indo-Caribbean queen. I'm so proud, from Toronto. So I'm so excited to continue watching and continue getting inspired. So as we get settled in, I encourage you guys to kind of get a glass of water, a cup of juice, whatever your thing is, get a notebook, get a pen, and just get ready to get inspired. And feel free to take breaks as you feel and as you need to. And yeah, just have fun, okay? Thanks, guys. So I'll pass it off to Shahada again, and I'll see you in a second.
Taking it back from Des. I am back with a history minute. I want to talk to you all about the root of the base of all forms of art. Art comes from the beauty of storytelling. And that started with the African people, from when we were beautiful, melanated goddesses, kings, and queens. And when we passed on oral history to one another, we passed on our traditions, we passed on our habits, we passed on our culture, we passed on our love to each other orally. And that did not change with the introduction of slavery, it simply evolved. It evolved into songs, into hymns from religion and spirituality that we curated on our own. We used it as a way to tell each other hello, to tell each other goodbye, to say that a loved one has passed away, and in a way of celebration. That is how we use our art and continue to use it. We do it with poetry, we do it with song, we do it with rap. And those are all one and the same, as Des will gladly explain.
So Shahada kind of covered a little bit there about kind of the start and the African traditions of oral storytelling and spoken word. But this even extended into the 1900s where we saw it during the Harlem Renaissance, where there was kind of those like smoky jazz clubs with the guy snapping and he had the hat like this and the guy with the trumpet was playing in the background. And a lot of singers would sometimes scat or even just say their words with instrumental music playing behind them. Then this even transferred into the civil rights movement, which is a huge, huge movement for Black people and Black creators and Black artists, like we see Jill Scott Heron, Langston Hughes expressing themselves about their struggles as Black people in America. And a lot of this time this would be paired with jazz music, and even it would just stand on its own. Jill Scott Heron has a poem called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." It's said to be one of the first official spoken word poems. Feel free to check it out. You can find it on YouTube. And it's a really, really great poem, and I think it's even relevant to today. And then that leads us into New York, into the 4 boroughs, where we see hip-hop being born with people like Grandmaster Flash and DJ Kool Herc, kind of giving MCs a role in terms of rapping. And then that's the start of hip-hop. That's a very brief little overview, but you can always find some of this information online as well. It's incredible. It's an incredible history, and I think it's so important that we know the history of the art forms we partake in. So I'll pass it back off to Shahada for a little bit of a warm-up so we can get writing.
Poets, time for us to look at the roots and reasons of why we write poetry. We all have our own unique, very different experiences and realities, which add to the reasons of why we write and why we express ourselves. And when you really look at them, there's really 4 main reasons why. I'll talk about 2. We have truth and self-love. Those are 2 very imperative things, especially when it comes to writing. When you tell a story, to be authentic and to be genuine, you need to know oneself. You need to be in love with oneself to tell the authenticity and the truth of your story.
Hey everyone, I'm back. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our other themes: responsibility and resilience. Have a little think for yourself, if that means just pausing the video for a second. Have a think for yourself of what that could mean, what that looks like, what those words specifically mean to you. But to me, responsibility can mean showing up to work on time, or even everything from taking the chicken out of the freezer before your mom gets home. That can be a big responsibility. Or feeding your pet goldfish. Responsibility varies. But then the most important responsibility to me is the responsibility we have to ourselves, to respect ourselves, to listen to ourselves, to honor ourselves, and always do right by ourselves. And that's probably the most important responsibility we have. So think about that as well. Resilience is technically the bounce back, and how through times of adversity, times of change, we continue to move forward and push through. And whether that means completing a task we need to complete, or just simply even getting out of bed, that's a form of resilience. And even you being in this workshop today is even a form of resilience. If you're looking for a way to express yourself or just something to try, something new, that is a form of resilience too, especially in these uncertain, unprecedented times. As people are saying, it's been a tough time. So it's awesome that you're here. And these prompts will kind of come through in these next few activities that we're going to do with you all right now.
All right, everybody, it is time to put our pens to our paper. We're gonna get into a little bit of writing, what we like to call prompts. Prompts are simply activities, they could always be games, just something to get the mind flowing, to get the creativity growing, and to get our imagination raving. That is simply what these are about. There is no pressure to it at all. Don't give yourself an expectation going into it. Just let your mind take you where it goes. Let your hand follow the paper wherever it chooses to lead. Let your ink take whatever form it decides to take. So what we're gonna do is a free write. A free write can be free form, free spirit, free way of thinking. Think of it as writing a diary. You've all had a diary, a journal, somewhere where you put down your feelings. It didn't always make sense, if we're being honest. And with a free write, it's not always going to make sense. It's not always going to be a fully formed and a fully developed poem. With poetry, you write your poem and you edit. There's a lot of editing that takes place. So just let it go wherever it decides to go. Don't stress about it, all right? So I want you to take your pen, your paper, and you got 5 minutes to get into it, okay? So wherever, and I stress it, wherever your mind takes you, don't worry about structure, don't worry about lines, don't worry about grammar. Please use a pen. I always say, do not erase your art. Let it lay on the paper. And whatever ideas you choose to edit out later, you edit out later, but let your feelings be in their purest and rawest form as they can be in this moment. So you're gonna have 5 minutes, you're gonna get it flowing, you're gonna get it pumping, we're gonna get some amazing, beautiful art on our paper for our first time. For some of you, it really may be your first time writing a poem, and don't let that intimidate you, all right? So we got 5 minutes on the clock. Okay, you guys are doing good. Don't worry about it. Don't think of, oh, I'm 2 minutes in, I already need 3 lines. I'm 2 minutes in, I already need 5 lines. There was no expectations. There was no criteria at all. So let it just flow and grow. Vibe out to the 1-2 tune we got playing. You guys are doing amazing. You can write about how COVID's been making you feel. As we talked before about the Netflix, whatever Netflix show you're watching, the feelings that incites as well. You can write about your aspirations for the future. It's always an amazing thing to be hopeful. Always be hopeful. Hold hope with you wherever you go, because that is what's gonna keep you to grow and help you in terms of perseverance. Always stay hopeful. You can write a letter to someone, a letter to yourself. You can include repetition, a lot of repetition in your lines. You got a few minutes left. I think we hit a minute down. Yeah, just wherever it takes you. If you already know some forms of poetry, include that in. And if you don't, like I said, it's a diary. Let it go where it goes. At this point, you might have hit 2 poems in one. You might be in two completely different idea lanes. That's totally normal, completely normal. But you're doing great. As long as you have words on the paper, you have done something. You have curated something. You have taken your first step towards telling your truth, which is so important. You're doing an amazing job, and just keep vibing out. I'm gonna let tunes play for a while. Doing great. But I definitely think, as people, it's important that we're honest to ourselves. Never write your poetry for someone else, but write it for yourself. Because those are the stories that you're putting out. And you want your stories to reflect the identity of who you are. Someone can always tell their own story, but who's going to tell yours? That's what you need to think. As you write, think, what is my intention? What am I doing this for? Really take this moment to self-reflect. But you're doing a great job as long as you got words on that paper. I encourage you from now on to maybe have a journal where you decide to write and keep your ideas. You don't have to make it anything purposeful. It could just be something where your brain is reflected for you to see. But you're doing a great job. I can feel the energy through the phone. Yes, we're getting some writing done. First steps, always a first step. All right? Tunes are gonna play for maybe 30 seconds more. All right, everybody, I hope those free writes are good to go, down packed. I'm just joking, not down packed. It's never gonna be finished. Your poems are never gonna be finished. You're always gonna grow, and there's always gonna be more to add to the idea of it. But Des has some amazing, amazing prompts ready for you, so she's gonna take it away.
Hey everyone, so I'm gonna kind of tag along with Shahada there and help you guys out with a bit of a warm-up as well. I hope you found the 5 minutes of writing to be helpful. Personally, I find it to be really tough sometimes to just be writing for 5 minutes straight, and then I always put pressure on myself to try to write as much as I can when that's not even necessarily the expectation. Of my hand hurts. So please know, even for someone who's been doing this for a while, that can be a hard thing too, but it does work. I can guarantee you it's almost like you've had a really long day at school or at work or wherever, and you come home and just rant, and how much better that feels, and you almost have a weight lifted off of you, hopefully. So that's kind of what the free write does. So I hope that helps a little bit. So now we're gonna try something a little bit different. So the warm-up I have planned for you guys is called thinking hats. Now, this is technically known as a grounding exercise for people with anxiety, for when they're either having a bit of an anxious moment and they just want to collect themselves, be grounded in the moment, center themselves. So this is a good technique, but I also, doing it myself, I also found that it's an interesting way to kind of ignite your senses, because it literally, it calls on each of your senses to do something basically, and to recognize something around you and ground you in the place where you are. So essentially what this consists of is naming 5 things you can see, 4 things you can physically feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can touch, and 1 thing you can taste. I'll explain a bit more in a second. So essentially with these, you're just gonna wanna write each category down. So again, it's 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can touch, and 1 thing you can taste. Now, usually the 1 thing is something you usually have to say, like 1 good thing about you, just as an affirmation. But I just added the taste thing because, again, it just adds that sense to it as well. So you can write those things down. I'll have it pop up on the screen here for you so you can keep an eye on exactly what you need to do. But each thing is essentially, it's literally in the room around you, wherever you are right now. Name those things. I also challenge you to name your relationship to those things. So, for example, if I have a bottle of hand sanitizer right here, I could even say the bottle of hand sanitizer that hasn't been opened yet, because this one hasn't been opened yet. Or even my candle. Right? The candle that is almost done because I use it so much. So things like that. So I challenge you to also think about those little ways instead of just naming things around you. And then even if you think about certain sounds, really try to dig deeper into what those sounds are around you. Even if it's a faint sound in the distance that you can't really tell what exactly it is, maybe take a guess, or even call it faint sound in the background, whatever that looks like for you. One like taste is not one that generally people are like, what else could I be tasting? But even if that means you're craving something or something you really want to eat, I could go for a bubble tea right now because it's really hot outside. I can almost taste the taro bubble tea. So that's something I can almost taste. That's something I'm thinking of. That's something that came to mind. Again, this isn't something meant for you to overthink. So just keep the momentum. Again, like Shahada said, just keep the pen on the page and just write as you feel. Even if that means you're just jotting down dots until you can actually think of letters and words to write, perfect. That's fine. That's up to you. That's all your prerogative. Again, this is just for you, and these are just some starting points for you to continue learning and continue writing and hopefully becoming a more skilled writer in that work. Okay? So again, I'll repeat it. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can touch, and 1 thing you can taste. So again, 5 things you can see around you, 4 things you can feel. So if that means your t-shirt on your back, your hair elastic around your elbow, 3 things you can hear around you, 2 things you can touch around you, and 1 thing you can taste. Again, remember kind of the examples that I gave of what those things can mean and the different relationships you can have to objects or things or sounds around you. So remember that that can extend a bunch of different ways. Okay, so I'm going to leave you to that for a few moments, and I'll come back and we'll talk about it a bit more, and I'll share some of my thinking hats with you as well. Again, so I hope you all enjoyed the thinking hats activity. I'm going to share a few of mine that are kind of around me. So in terms of the 5 things you can see, I said literally my hands. I can see my hands writing on the page. I can see my hands in front of my laptop right now. I have a little hourglass on my desk that I just kind of, it's just kind of decorative. I like yellow a lot. So there's my hourglass that I got from IKEA. My lamp here, I won't move that because it's a little much. And then obviously my beloved candle that is burning out, that I'm going to need more of because I love this candle so much, right? So then 4 things I can physically feel. I feel my t-shirt on my skin. I had a bit of a runny nose, so I felt like a little bit of my nose dribbling a little bit. Then tea tree oil that I sometimes use on my skin, as well as even the stuff I put in my hair because I washed my hair today. Shout out wash day. And I'm wearing my little house slippers right now, so that's something I felt on my feet and it was warm. Again, just acknowledging my relationship to those things and like just getting into those details of it feels warm on my feet. So that's another thing I can physically feel. In terms of the 3 things I can hear, I hear the wind blowing outside. I don't know if it's picking up on video, but there's a car outside with really loud music, so I kind of hear the bass thumping. My house sometimes creaks occasionally, and I can also kind of hear the faint distance of my mom downstairs talking on the phone. So even just the faint sounds here or there, again, you just have to acknowledge that. And even if you don't know exactly what it is, that's okay too. And then 3 things I can smell, of course, 2 things I can smell: the tea tree oil on my skin and even the candle aroma around me as well. Makes me kind of want to burn it now, but it's daytime. I'll wait until later on. Anyway, and then 1 thing I can taste, I just had some fruit punch. I took a little break and I just drank some fruit punch. So that's something that's still kind of, I can taste in my mouth. And now I'm thinking about dinner. So we'll see what taste that kind of makes me think of there. But overall, the reason why this is such a great exercise, and you can use it anyway, again, it's meant to be an anxiety grounding technique, which is amazing. But the main thing is just to ground you in your surroundings. And maybe you might notice things that you didn't realize before. Another idea is to you can time this. Give yourself 1 minute to complete the whole thing. 1 minute may be too long, 1 minute may be too short, who knows? But again, it's just challenging yourself to go for the first thing that's on your mind, and that's a huge part of maybe what makes writing so great, in my opinion, because it just comes from this raw emotion of just wanting to get something out onto the page, or just wanting to communicate something, even if that means with yourself, just for a writing activity, just challenging yourself. And another thing is, of course, it ignites the senses. It makes you kind of think with your senses, and that helps make your poetry, that helps make your writing more descriptive. It helps make your writing a lot more deeper and in depth, and it really can help paint the picture even more of what you're talking about in your poem or in your story, whatever you're writing. And if you want to push the thinking hats a little bit further, if you want to get a little more creative with it, you can start thinking about different things. So maybe think about a really unique experience you had, or a standout memory in your mind of something that happened to you, maybe when you were a kid, or something that you just did last week, or whatever, the last time you ate your favorite food, or last time you had your favorite bubble tea. Whatever the case is, you can think about that, and then think about how all the senses were ignited in that time. So that's another creative way. Or even think about what it's like at a Raptors game, or just think about different situations, and that's another way to push the thinking hats forward and perhaps even inspire another poem. Okay, so now that we're kind of finished and we're warmed up, we got the creative juices flowing and we're ready, we're gonna go into some new activities for you guys. So on to Shahada.
The islands. It's people so in touch with themselves, learning rhythm before they could walk, Tassa in steel pan before our own heartbeat, smiles before we could speak. Our history tastes of calypso and sweet chutney with a little bit of Scotch bonnet, but my grandmother always denied how much pepper was in the pot anyway, because I'd like to believe that all this trauma can be boiled down to Caribbean time. Always behind, but always arrives with a smile, almost as if the intergenerational cycles smuggled their way between the Trinidad cheese and Indian sweets in our parents' suitcases when they immigrated here, because it's so easy to believe that the things that hurt, that happened, are more temporary because bruises fade away, drunkenness goes away the next day, and the more broken we are as people, the easier it is to sweep things under the rug, right? The same rugs we played on as children, the same rugs our mothers felt while being beaten by both husband and father, the same ones our fathers passed out drunk on, because if these walls could talk. The picture of my grandmother winning the Mastana Bahar in Trinidad holds a tune much sadder than the one she sang that day, because it's so easy to believe we're all okay when everyone says West Indian people are the friendliest people they know. But I promise you, smiling is all we could do, smiling is all we can hold on to when you have a culture that direct deposits you pain, clings to you like a curry stain, like the national flag droops with all the tears we are never allowed to cry.
That I love listening to poetry every time. In the world of poetry, we love to snap, we love to go or we go We love to be extra. It's how we share our love for each other and our appreciation for each other's vulnerability. So thank you so much, Des, for sharing. It was beautiful. All right, poets, so we're gonna dig a little deeper. Des and I have some prompts prepared for you to get into the topics of truth, of self-love, of responsibility to yourself and others, and resiliency. So I have 2 prompts for you all about truth and self-love. This first prompt is called, what is your name? You're gonna take your name, and that's gonna be the title of your poem. Your poem is gonna be the meaning of your name. You can recreate the meaning of your name. It could be the meaning of your name that you fell in love with. It could be any meaning of your name. And to take that and to write about it and to digest it and to go through it and to dissect it as well and to see, how much does your name mean to you? How much of you does it reflect? And to create that meaning for yourself. One example I could give for you is my name is Shahada, and it is an Arabic Islamic name, and it means to take an oath, to make a promise. And I say I stick to my name. I keep my promises because I find there is so much power in them. And with that, take those 2 sentences that I've created, and that can be such a bigger piece to it. That can be such a bigger poem to it, and to digest that, and to dissect it, and to go through it, and to create it into something bigger than those 2 sentences. Because there's so much more to you than just 2 sentences that make your name, your identity more palatable to others. Because nothing should ever be palatable. You should be fruitful, you should be full of life, and to create that with this poem. So go through that. Really be honest with yourself in the words that you write. Be truthful. Not everything you say about yourself is going to be up to par and positive and the best confidence, because we're not all 100% there. We're not all 100% confident. But to show yourself love is to acknowledge all the parts of yourself, all the nitty-gritty parts of yourself that others might not acknowledge because they may find it disrespectful. Or it's good to give each other hype. It's good to make each other feel loved in abundance, but it's okay for you to reflect on yourself and to see the person that you truly are, and to be able to acknowledge that is to be able to grow from that. So from this, I want you to really reflect in this writing piece who you truly are and what does that mean, and also who you aspire to be. As I said before, it's so important to be hopeful. Be hopeful. Because that is what's going to help you grow and move forward and be able to take each day step by step. That's what's truly important. This poem is step by step, line to line. Really look at what you're writing and what you're creating. With the warm-ups, it was wherever your mind took you. But have more intention with what you're writing now. Be more purposeful with the words that you are putting down on your paper. With this piece, I don't want you to compare yourself to others. I want you to look at the version of you that you truly know, which is the only version that truly matters. That's what I want you to look at with this piece. So you are now going to have 3 minutes to write the piece. And you're gonna go through that, you're gonna work through that. And a piece can be 5 lines. It doesn't have to be a 30-line piece that's lengthy and 2 pages long. It could be 5 lines, and that's all you have on your paper. It could be 2 lines, and that's all you have on your paper. As long as it means something to you, and it's a message that you want to throw out into the world, and it's the energy you want to put out, and the spirit that you want to put out. So really be intentional and purposeful with the words that you are writing in this moment. Make sure you're focusing. Your lines need to be connected. There needs to be connectivity within this piece. So truly, before you write, know what your name means to you. That's what I want you to work on. So just vibe to the music, write your words down, let it flow, let it grow as we're saying, as we're going. Let that be what you put into the world. So take your time, go through it. We're gonna let the time run. You're doing good. As I said before, as long as you have words on that paper, it equals to growth. That is equivalent to growth, to starting something. So you're doing a great job. You're doing amazing. So keep that pen going, keep that brain going. There is no such thing as writer's block. It is a state of mind. Keep yourself pushing. You have writer's block because you believe that there is a bar that you need to set, that there is an amount of writing that you need to do, that there is a quality of writing that you need to do, but that is not the truth. The only comparison you make is a comparison that you can make to yourself and that the growth you're looking towards creating. So manifest that. Manifest the growth within yourself. To understand that there's no writer's block, that you keep pushing that pen to that paper. You're doing an amazing job. Keep up with it. Don't stop. Don't say you can't do it. You got it. I know it can be hard to dig deep and look within yourself, and sometimes it can be so uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable brings us to being more comfortable. So work through that. Doing a great job. Keep vibing, keep writing. You're doing it, you're doing it. All right, everybody. That is that on what is your name. Feel free to pause the video. Feel free to digest it. If you need more time, take a pause. But if you're good to go, we're gonna keep on rolling. All right, everybody, so I hope you took your pause, you took your breather, you took your break. Now the next prompt we're going into is called A City You've Never Been To. So before I even start talking, I want you to write your piece about a city that you've never been to. So you're gonna have 3 minutes to write this piece. Like I said before, it could be 5 lines, 2 lines, 20 lines, 15 lines, however lines you can get in that 3 minutes. And if you need to take a pause, take a pause. But you got 3 minutes as we go along in this workshop. So you're gonna have your 3 minutes. Really focus on the landmarks you know of the city, and the people you know of the city, and the food you know of the city, from what people have told you, from what you've seen on the internet. But remember, you haven't been there, so you really don't have your own personal opinion off of what you've seen. So 3 minutes to write this piece. It could be a little difficult. If you've never been there, you'll see as we go along, you might start having some blocks here and there, but it's okay, it's normal. Try your best to just push it. Got it? I can feel you thinking, I can feel it, I can feel it, I can feel it. You're doing good. Don't stress about it. We all work at our own different speeds, but you're doing good. If you made it this far, you're doing a great job. Keep pushing it. All right, we're gonna have some music going. You'll hear my voice in a few minutes, but we'll just have some serenity for a while. All right, poets, I hope that 3 minutes did enough justice, or I hope you took a pause if you needed more time, because that's always okay. So now we're gonna go through the importance of this prompt. I know it doesn't seem that it's that deep, but we're gonna explain the importance of writing this piece. This piece is so important because it explores writing about your own personal experiences to be able to connect with your audience. Writing personal experiences and writing things that you know about allows you to create a personal, vulnerable aspect to your piece. A great poet, not just a good poet, but a great poet, allows themselves to be vulnerable. A great artist allows themselves to be vulnerable. Think of Tupac. He has some amazing pieces, and they're not all hard and gangster and all about it. Some are about his mom. Some are about girls he grew up with and how their life turned out. That is so vulnerable, and those are some of his most memorable pieces. Always remember that with art comes vulnerability. With truth comes vulnerability. And to be able to be comfortable about speaking your truth and being vulnerable, you have to love yourself and the experiences that you go through, because that is how you're going to learn from it. So I encourage you after this prompt to go write about a city that you do know about, like Toronto, where we grew up, or if you're watching this from somewhere else, wherever you grew up, and write about that. Write about the people that you meet, write about the people that you hope to meet, write about the places you've eaten, the taste of the food, the transit, all that good stuff that you get to experience on your own. Write about that and see the difference, see the contrast between those two pieces. Feel free to perform them to people and see the different reactions, because you will see the reactions to that vulnerability, the importance of that vulnerability. So we're gonna run this in our heads. When it comes to creating art and writing, self-love plus truth is equivalent to vulnerability, which is so imperative to writing beautiful, conversational, and message-conveying art, and impactful art at that. So with this piece, what we go through is that you can write about other people's experiences because you believe that's what's gonna attract attention. We could write about cities like New York and LA because those are the cool places that people are into. But at the end of the day, if you haven't experienced it, if you haven't lived it, if you haven't experienced the love and the hate for it, you won't be able to write that deep, connective piece that people are looking for. People are looking to experience pain, anger, love through art. They want to feel your emotion. They want to empathize with you. And you have to be able to empathize with yourself first before others can empathize with you. So please, I encourage you after this piece to write about a city you do know about and to experience the emotions that will come out of that. As you can find, as you're writing this piece, it may have been a little bit emotionless. You could have just been going through the motions, the facts, what you saw on social media, all that different kind of stuff. It could have felt like a school project because it was so emotionless. So I really want you to feel that difference in emotion you felt within yourself with writing the contrast of the two pieces, of writing about a city you've never been to and a city that you love or that you've been to or that you hate, but feel that difference in emotion. It will come up, it will bubble up, you will feel it. So that's what I want you to keep in mind when you're writing, the vulnerability. If you don't feel anything writing your piece, will the audience feel something about your piece? Think about that.
The beautiful struggle. Despite the constant fight against the inevitability of assimilation, those who have gone on to the meaning of their culture get to have somewhere to call home, to call their own. I recognize you are being gentrified, being erased. I slowly passing genocide happening right before my eyes, and I can feel the uncertainty of the stability of my own identity eating away at me. The same way society is doing to you, corroding the very essence of our shared history. From Kennedy Station, the web of the borough now an unrecognizable location due to the irreversible alterations they say is for our benefit. Last I checked, I've always known how to get from downtown to Scarborough. Know that you have raised me to accept every nappy hairline, to see the beauty in
Wow, that was amazing. Snaps to that one. I love that poem from Shahada. There's so much truth in it, so much detail, what's relevant to her life. But I hear that. I didn't grow up in Scarborough, I grew up in Brampton, but I can feel that. I feel her connection to it. I almost feel a connection to it hearing her read it with so much passion. So that's incredible. And again, we love to show love to our poets, and the way we do that is through snaps, or going or stomping, just any sort of audible sound you can make that expresses your appreciation. So thank you to Shahada for sharing that poem. I hope you guys kind of got the creative juices flowing. Hopefully you took a little break in between. Hopefully it just got you thinking, and those are some things you can use even in your own writing, even in your own creative endeavors, just as a way to get inspired in any way, whether that means you're doing a poem, whether that means you're painting, whether that means you're making music. That's totally up to you. Also, feel free to kind of resituate yourself. So if you want to come work outside, soak up some of this summer sun, whatever, unless it's raining that day. But in any case, you can do whatever you want. Just take your time with this, enjoy it, come back to it, however you want to go about it. So I'm going to jump into another activity for you all. So there's one thing I want you to try. I want you to try to think of something you've told yourself again and again that you've lost track of. So at the top of your page, write, I've lost count of how many times, ... All right, guys, perfect. So I've got my handy dandy notebook here. I've lost count of how many times, ... And I've chose to just number the page 1 to 10. Now, the biggest thing with this, don't be intimidated by me numbering it 1 to 10. Sometimes I'll do that for my own sake, and I may not even get to 10. Sometimes I'll get stuck on 3 or 4 or 5 if I'm lucky. So it's just, it's not even a matter of how much you produce, but it's just the starting point and what this is supposed to do for you. It's just meant to be a spark of inspiration, hopefully. And if it's not necessarily a spark of inspiration today, maybe it will be tomorrow or the next day. That's the beautiful part about this. And it's just a matter of really being open to trying new things, trying different things, and just being open with yourself. And the beautiful thing about this is you can feel free to share what you want to share, of course, using the hashtag, commenting below, and yeah, continue using this just as you please. So I'll stay with you for a little bit as you start to write. I want to share some of mine with you, but just keep in mind it's not something that needs to be overthunk. It's not something that needs to be read into too much. It's really just the first thing that came to mind. It's kind of your first instinct. And in doing this, it's kind of like the 5 minutes of writing that Shahada did with you earlier. It's just kind of getting out what's in your head onto the page. And there's something beautiful about that, because when you're doing that, you're kind of exposing other things that you might be needing to say, that you might be holding back, that you haven't just found the words for yet, and maybe getting those other things out of your head have helped do that. So that's really important work that I think is so necessary if you're a writer of any kind, if you're an artist of any kind, just having an outlet and doing what you can do to just process those feelings. So again, I've lost count of how many times. That could mean a lot of things, I know. Don't get intimidated by that. If it's just one thing you have on the page right now, that's totally okay. It's just a matter of just starting somewhere, right? It's all about starting somewhere. So I'll come back with some of my own as examples, and we'll continue going from there. All right, everyone, I'm back. Hope everyone kind of enjoyed that little bit of writing time. Again, it's just kind of listing some things out, thinking about what that means. Doesn't necessarily have to be a poem, doesn't necessarily have to be anything you create, but it's just kind of a starting point, a place to kind of begin your initial thoughts and where you want to head with maybe writing something. So I wanted to kind of run through some of the things I had written. So I wrote little things like, even like, I've done my laundry wrong. It's totally a personal thing. I heat up the pan too much and I burn my eggs. You know, when you heat up the pan too much and you put the egg in, it's not cute. Or I've dropped my phone. Everyone knows they drop their phone and they have that moment of like, is it okay? Is it okay? I've lost count. Like, I can't even, if I had a dime for every time I've done that, I would be a millionaire. Or even like, I thought as I kind of came to the end of the list, I even said, I've lost count of how many times I've needed to be reminded that I'm beautiful. And that's just kind of a self-reflection thing. But the reason in which I thought this was such an important prompt for you all was because this kind of reflects into the responsibility aspect that I was talking to you about. Just what our responsibilities are, and sometimes that responsibility can literally mean cleaning your clothes off the floor. Or even reminding yourself that you're worthy and you're beautiful and you have talent and you have a lot of things to offer. So that's a really big part of it as well. It's just kind of like taking on that responsibility, and sometimes that can be annoying because we're not always trying to be that self-reflective, but it's important, and this is just work just for you. You don't have to share this with anyone. You don't have to necessarily do anything big with it. It's just a place to kind of get some ideas of what to write about and how you want to continue taking responsibility in the work you do and perhaps even the art you create. So that's a really important part. So we're going to do another exercise in just a moment. If you want to continue writing, go for it. If you want to. Okay, everyone. So I had to come back inside. It was getting way too hot outside, but I have another little activity for you. It's kind of inspired by the last one we just did of you've lost count of how many times. And again, that one was all about how, you know, about responsibility and what we're learning and things we want maybe perhaps even other people to learn, or things we'd like the world to learn, or whatever was based on your list. Now we want to use that as a reflection, and I'd like you to write a letter to your future self based on some of the things you've told yourself again and again, or things you've lost count of how many times you've had to say, how many times you've had to do, how many times you have to remind yourself, and let that inform what you want your letter to your future self be. Now again, don't overthink it, whatever kind of came to mind. And even if this is just something to start with, even if it doesn't form into a poem just yet, or you don't have intention of writing it into a poem, if you just do jot notes of things you'd want your future self to know, or things you'd want to say to your future self, or things you'd hope for your future self based on the things you've lost count of, or the things you've had to do 1,000,000 times to get right. Maybe you're saying, I hope you learn how to do it properly by then, or whatever the case is. It's just a letter to your future self. So this can start, Dear Desiree, I hope you finally learn how to do the laundry properly, or I hope you finally start picking your clothes up off the ground so your mom isn't mad, or whatever the case is, you know, just things like that. So base it off of that, or even just use the original list you wrote of things you've lost count of, just as an inspiration point, and you can start something totally different if there's things you already want to tell your future self, or things you'd want them to know. So just write, Dear future self, or Dear Desiree 10 years from now. Whatever you want to, however you want to look at it, you can look at yourself a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, if you want, whatever number of time, or if you don't even want to give it a number, if you just want to keep it general, you can do that too. Again, this is all up to you. You can try it a bunch of different times, even if that means you start writing something and you're like, wait, I want to change it, flip the page, keep going, or just keep going with what you already have. That's totally fine too. So just keep that in mind. It's not something you're meant to overthink. It's just something for you to try out, something to maybe take with you, and continue writing with later on. So as you begin to write your letter to your future self based on I've lost count of how many times, ... you can start to think of all the different ways you can start that poem, or if you want the poem to be in sections, or if you want it to be led by, for example, you start the poem with, "Dear Desiree, in 10 years, I hope you learn to do your laundry properly. I hope you stop burning your eggs in the morning. I hope you finally learn how to slick down your baby hairs. I hope you finally know that you're worthy." Something like that, just to start with. So you can start by even saying, "I hope," and then continuing that with different phrases to kind of guide the thinking, to kind of keep a theme flowing throughout the poem, whatever the case is. Again, there's a lot of different ways you can take this, and that's totally up to you. That's why we did the warm-ups. That's why we did the lost count of how many times list, so you can kind of start getting reflective, and how that reflection can even move you forward into your future and what your future could look like. And again, this is sort of about the resiliency we spoke about earlier. So how have you been resilient, and what are things you hope you'd be resilient about? In reflection, I think there's a lot of things we realize about ourselves that we're like, wow, I made it through so many other things in the past. In the future, I'll probably be looking back at this time and realizing, wow, I made it through that as well. So that kind of falls into resilience, and how resilient we can be, and how strong we can be, and how we keep moving forward, and how the things that seem to be bothering us or seem to be plaguing us at one time, now we know what we had to do to work through it, and we did. Or we currently are still working through it, but it's every day at a time, and that's an achievement in itself. So I'm gonna let you guys write for a couple minutes. I'll be here to keep you guys motivated. Remember, don't overthink it. Don't get too in your head. Just write. Just let the words flow. Work through that, as Shahada said. Just keep working through it. Keep working through those ideas. Scribble all over the page if you have to. Again, this time is yours. This time is yours to explore. And even if it means you close the book right now and you come back to it later, again, like I said before, we are planting seeds for later. And who knows, this could inspire a poem, a painting, music, whatever you do, even something you do for school later on, right? So again, it's just planting a seed. It's just giving you things to think about, giving you things to reflect on, and see how you have managed your responsibilities to yourself and to others, as well as your own resilience, which I know you all have a lot of by being here today, by trying to learn a new art form, by trying to find new ways to express yourselves and everything you have to offer. So just continue writing. Don't let your pen leave the page. Do not let your pen leave the page. You're doing amazing. I know you're doing some great work. I would love to see what's in those notebooks, and I hope, again, we can all sit together and write together again one day. But for now, these are just some little nuggets for you guys. Ooh, nuggets. That's what I could eat for dinner. Anyway, but I hope these are some little nuggets for you guys to carry with you into the future, and keep writing and keep building on what you guys want to create, and how you guys want to express yourselves, and how you keep moving forward as writers and as creators.
There is such a high importance to writing, not simply just to produce such beautiful, truthful, raw art,
but also to have an outlet for self-expression, to explore identity, to track your growth emotionally, mentally, spiritually, to get a better understanding of yourself, more confidence within yourself, to get the right words and vocabulary to express yourself in a more productive way. There's so many benefits to the art of writing, not simply in terms of poetry and rap and in song, but just simply to write your emotions and let them lay out on a paper, to see yourself reflected back at you. That is why it is so important to write. It is so important to have an outlet where you see yourself reflected, where you have the opportunity to tell your story, to tell your truth, to see yourself so beautifully represented in your eyes.
So Shahada and I, before we wrap up, we have one final prompt for you guys. And it's very simple. And it's just something just for you, again, just to kind of take away with you as we finish this workshop. Something to keep in mind as we reflect back on our themes of responsibility, resilience, truth, and self-love. So for mine, I'm going to talk a little bit about responsibility and resilience. So there's one thing I want you to do. I want you to write, "I know I will," and "I know I can" on your page. Do that, come right back, and I'll tell you why. So essentially what you're doing with those two phrases is finishing them. So saying, "I know I will," blank, "I know I can," blank. Fill in the blanks, play some Mad Libs, kind of just like have some fun with it. And even if there are things you want to necessarily, you want to be able to do one day, or you want to believe you want to do, you can even write that as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you're certain of right now. Just put that positive energy into the universe and just finish the sentence, whatever comes first to your mind. So the reason we want you all to do this is because it relates back to our themes of responsibility and resilience. Responsibility is being able to say, "I know I will do this, this, and this for myself today because it makes me feel good, and I owe that to myself," or like, "I need to complete this task for this person in my life who I really care about, and I know they really care about me," whatever the case is. And the responsibility of being honest with yourself about what those tasks and what those things look like is really important. So I know I will, blank. Then in terms of resilience, I know I can. So can just implies that for the future, you can overcome whatever is thrown your way, whatever happens, and you have certain tools and certain ways of doing that, and you will continue being resilient just as you are now.
To the 2 lines that Desiree has given you, write down, "I know I am," and write down, "I know I believe." These 2 affirmations are so important, and they can be so life-changing in the way that "I know I am" affirms the way you feel about yourself. It encourages you to be the person that you want to be, that you inspire to be. And it also encourages you to reflect on who you are now. So really use that line, "I know I am," as a very important and simplistic way to reflect on yourself. The line, "I know I am," and "I know I believe." This line is so important in the way that it challenges your beliefs. It makes you reflect and look on your morals and your values and your cultural traditions and your cultural beliefs and your spiritualities, and to really know and understand the foundation that you stand on as a person. These 2 lines, "I know I am" and "I know I believe," will help you to ground yourself in times of need, when people are challenging you and testing your patience and testing who you are and questioning your priorities and your values and your beliefs, to take a moment to breathe and to read this to yourself, to say, "I know I am and I know I believe." No one will know you as much as you know yourself. So truly take the time to get to know yourself. Use any tools possible to figure out who you are and what works for you. And how you're going to develop through the years is using those tools. So really look at these 4 lines that we have given you and develop a beautiful piece, a beautiful poem of self-discovery and self-knowledge and self-affirmation and self-understanding, and most importantly, self-love. Use these tools. We cannot wait to see all your beautiful pieces, and make sure that you tag our socials. My IG's right here, Shahada Jack, and you have Desiree's IG right here. Make sure you tag us. We're so excited to check it all out. All right, everyone, that is the end of our wonderful time. I hope that you took so much away today, not just in terms of writing, but in terms of every day-to-day tools that you can use for yourself, in terms of self-discovery, in terms of how you react to others' reactions, and to really understand that self-identity aspect to it, and to use these tools to grow and to learn as we move on through this so complicated, complex world. I hope that one day we can all meet face to face and just feel the energies and feel the vibes. Still felt it, but you know, sometimes it's not the same. All right, peace, everybody.